This video will be about lore mysteries that can be solved by examining what is hidden in plain sight. Some of these mysteries have already been answered by my previous videos, so I recommend my viewers to check them out. Put simply, the cycle of the world of Dark Souls is the passing of day and night. It started once the first flame arose, through its sparking of duality. Londor stands for the Land of Hollows, the vast, ruined world of the future. Londor's inhabitants are old and shriveled due to the very nature of the land. The locations of Dark Souls are not only attached to physical areas, but also to respective time zones. Some places reside in times past and some in future times. That is explained by the fracture of time and space caused by the human's interference with the cycle.
Long ago, in a walled-off land far to the north, a great king built a great kingdom. I believe they called it Drangleic. Perhaps you're familiar? No, how could you be? But one day, you will stand before its decrepit gate without really knowing why.
Hollow gems, a form of titanite somewhat particular to Londor, is merely the petrified heart of hollows. All forms of titanite are, in fact, petrified organic remains of creatures. The towers of the Sable Church, as we are told, feature branching spikes, akin to the Morion Blade's thorns. The religious leaders of the future merely adopted the ruins of buildings as places of worship. The Sable Church guides undead to the past, in a journey through time and space, so that they can fulfill their roles and groom the ones fit to usurp the fire. Londor is not the only named place that is hidden in plain sight. Most of the named places, in fact, appear throughout the trilogy. One obvious example is the Great Swamp, the ancient home of pyromancy. It became the ancient civilization of Izalith, and further evolved into a giant pool of magma after the creation of the Bed of Chaos. Sen's fortress was built by Sif, the albino dragon, under the pseudonym of Sen. Its stated goal was to serve as a grueling training ground to aspiring Silver Knights. However, the true, concealed objective of Sif was to capture undead for his experiments, and transport them to Anor Londo. Sif may have used the pseudonym as a way to hide his underlying motivation, and perhaps as consequence of his horrible reputation. That explains why so many of his serpent men are present in Sen's fortress, and why they carry keys to the cages that imprison undead. One of the major components of the soul is memory. And it is that principle that allows us to channel our focus to instantaneously learn and perform combat arts of past warriors just by holding their blades. That also explains why we can transpose the souls of bosses into gear, weapons and spells. And the fact that many of the boss foes possess memories of older beings hints at them having reincarnated a part of those beings' souls.
You who link the fire. You who bear the curse. Once the fire is linked, souls will flourish anew, and all of this will play out again. It is your choice to embrace or renounce this.
It could even be argued that the reason for our character's unlimited inventory and for the bottomless box mechanic is the items being condensed into memories. They are not physically stored by pouches, but magically stored within souls. All items are collected through souls after all. We are told that Sif, the albino dragon, is the grandfather of sorcery, but there is evidence to suggest that magical powers of the same nature existed in the distant past. The old moonlight sorcery we get by transposing Midir's soul tells us of an older sword akin to the moonlight blade of Sif's time, a magical sword of an ancient sorcerer from not long after the beginning. Considering we obtained the old moonlight from Midir's memory, it's safe to assume that the sorcerer in question was bested by Midir, possibly during the ancient war against the dragons. The main school of sorcery in Dark Souls, that is, the Vinheim Dragon School, bases itself on the study of ancient dragons. Besides the name, the magical artifacts forged by them feature dragons. Not albino, deformed dragons, but regular ancient dragons. Those types of dragons were from a time before the Age of Fire, an Age of Night. Thus, they bathed in moonlight. During the Age of Fire, they evolved or mutated and started to spew fire or other magical breaths based on the elements around them, as we can see from Sin's poisonous breath and Kalamit's darkened fire. Midir's laser attacks are unique, however. It being the most ancient of dragons we encounter could be a clue as to the original nature of the powers of the ancient dragons. As an embodiment of death, Nito is quite obviously not what one would infer to be the benevolent god of a religion of holy purity and salvation such as the Way of White. But that is the case. His paladins, such as Leroy, who also serve as his private guard, are actually the agents of death. He is associated with Gwyn in a few ways. He isn't in any way opposite to Gwyn's rule, but an asset to it, which is why they collaborate. Gwyn wants the curse to spread, so that his son may become stronger, and Nito wants his death to spread. Gwyn's curse is spread mainly through death. Gwyn fabricated the Way of White as a way to disguise his and Nito's actions to spread the curse and to misguide the undead on purpose, which is why he would have to conceal Nito's identity as some other god to be worshipped. The narrative purpose of Ria's questline in Dark Souls 1 is to link the Way of White to Nito. It is about the disillusionment of that religion. Paladin Leroy is a figure of holiness on the surface, but is actually employed to spread death by Nito. Velka and Gwyndolin are two of the most mysterious characters in Dark Souls. It is quite hard to reach solid conclusions about their origin, but it is clear they're connected in many ways. The explanation I believe is more credible has to do with Gwyndolin's dualistic essence as the alchemical creation of Sif. embodying the principles of both male and female nature, much like Prince Lothric, the one who was cursed from birth to succeed Gwyndolin. He displays hermaphroditic characteristics. Both Velka and Gwyndolin are deeply involved in the Firelink conspiracy, the undead prophecy, and the coup that ousted and punished Gwyn. Gwyndolin is referred to as both the deity of the Dark Moon, representing the night he will rule under, and of the Dark Sun, representing the eclipse he channels through firelinking. The Dark Moon Blades, a secret police force commanded by Gwyndolin, punishes sinners. Velka is the goddess of sin, and it is her who oversees the Book of the Guilty. Both Velka's miracles and the Dark Moon Blade miracle feature the purple hue that connotates judgment. Velka's hairbraid allows miracles to be cast with intelligence scaling, and Gwyndolin's catalyst allows sorcery to be cast with faith scaling. We find the gender reversal ring hidden in the Dark Moon Tomb, Gwyndolin's secret hiding place, from where he commanded his knights. It's likely that he possessed that ring to perform both feminine and masculine voices, to act both as himself and Velka. One superficial explanation for the relation might be that of mother and son. However, I do not think that this is the case. Gwyndolин's bottom half is composed of snakes, and his sister Yorshka has dragon-like serpentine features as well. Priscilla, also related to Gwyndolin, is half dragon, half woman. Both are versed in illusory magic, like Gwyndolin. Sif, the albino dragon, produced many human-dragon hybrids, presumably in an attempt to create some sort of perfect homunculus. He was gifted a chunk of Gwyn's Lord Soul for his contribution in the Dragon Wars, and was granted dukedom. I believe both Priscilla and Yorshka failed attempts of developing the alchemical rebus. They turned out too feminine, and thus were hidden away and guarded by the Painting Guardians, hollow servants of Velka and Gwyndolin. I believe the most likely explanation is that Velka, Gwyn's wife, who married him as a political move to unite his royal lineage with Astoris, sacrificed herself in a ritualistic manner and granted a piece of her soul to Sif so that he could create Gwyndolin. That would explain why Gwyndolin is referred to as bastard by the Way of White Evangelists in Dark Souls 3, and also why he seems to appear as a baby being held by a hooded motherly figure in imagery. Other pieces of Velka's soul were then used to create artifacts to aid the undead who'd followed the prophecy, such as the Rings of Sacrifice and possibly the Tearstone and Clutch Rings. The sisters who later formed the Sable Church could also have been born out of this ritual, from Velka's soul chunks. Gwyndolin is a master manipulator that charms and guides undead to work for his Firelink conspiracy. One of his methods of manipulation involves disguising himself with the voice-altering reversal ring and illusory magic. He poses as Guinevere to the worthy undead who journey to Anor Londo to fulfill the prophecy. It is implied, however, that his illusion of Guinevere could also stand for Fina, the goddess of love, who might be a mere persona of his fabrication. Lothric, the Embraced Knight, seems to be following Fina's commands. He might have been the one who maimed and imprisoned Anastasia, the Firekeeper, to punish her for having spread the curse of undead under the Way of White's orders. He states that he's got pressing matters to attend to above at Anor Londo, and context clues tells us that he works for Gwyndolin. He carries souvenirs of reprisal with him and can be found near Guinevere's chamber. His mission may have been to punish sinners who contributed to Gwyn's conspiracy of the curse, and it's possible that Anastasia was not the first firekeeper he murdered, as he is found imprisoned in a cell at a parish of the Way of White, and near him is a firekeeper's soul resting on a corpse. He could have gotten caught by followers of the religion and imprisoned for his crime. As stated in Dark Souls 1, the gods of Anorlondo fled. Guinevere, as the daughter of Gwyn, migrated to Lothric, a younger civilization. Despite the tortured appearance she displays when you meet her, her framing still mirrors the beautiful Guinevere we see in Dark Souls 1. There are numerous connections between Guinevere and Rosaria, such as the miracle that can be transposed through her soul, Guinevere's bountiful sunlight, her role as a motherly figure to the undead who serve her, and a questline that ends with her soul being delivered to Guinevere's chamber in Anorlondo.